We are adding a little spring to our steps today and our homes in this trend spotting segment. Good morning to interior designer Glen Peloso. You look like spring has exploded in your kitchen right now.
It does feel a little bit like that. It's just been so beautiful outside. You're like, wow, it just seemed to happen all in one. That's how all the seasons go. It's sort of like, it's summer and then it's winter and then it's summer again. And there's spring seems to be a really short little period in the middle where you want it to feel really good.
Mm-hmm. And it would smell great, right? With the paper whites that you've got there, or the daffodils?
Oh, the daffodils, that whole sense of smell, the flowers coming up, the colors are great. And I mean, one of the things that's interesting, and you would have experienced this a little bit over the past few days, the few days before that freezing cold, and then it was starting to get really, really nice. And just the way the weather feels on your skin, how that sort of sensual feel, that's the same thing you want to try to create at home. When it's really cold, you want that warm, furry flannel feel. And when it starts to warm up, you want something a little bit more like a linen, something that feels just a little bit crisper and a little bit whiter. So start to change some of the colors that are in your house. And really, this is just talking about accents. I'm not talking about like change the whole thing. Adding things like the daffodils, the paper whites, getting that great smell, using some candles that provide you with that same smell of spring, opening the windows up a little bit. But if you look at something like this, all of these fabrics have a kind of texture to them. So the way that it actually feels on your hands, on your skin, is really starting to change. I like this little combination of the bright little yellows playing with this, and you can see those gold yellows are certainly trending in sort of the zeitgeist at the moment. This great little throw that has sort of nubs on it, so you can feel that it has sort of a three-dimensionality to it with this wonderful linen that all seems to play together and give you that feeling of bright and open. Look to change some of the art in your house so that you get a little pop of color, something a little bit brighter. I love this basket down on the floor just to be able to store some things. You get that sort of three-dimensional detail to it. This very same with that vase sitting next to it. That just sort of feels like a palm. It's white. You're looking for those kinds of things to happen. I just felt confident that you would love these little pillows, but the wonderful color and the birds and the added pop of color that you can now start to inject in the house and feel that sort of happy feeling that
It's
happens.
funny you mentioned that, because as soon as you popped up on screen, I'm like, oh, I love the chickadee pillows. You know me too well.
I do. I'll send them to you right after this. And then the things that you can use for throws in the house, like start looking at like big terry towels, or not terry towels, but big Turkish towels, that kind of soft three-dimensional feel. It still provides you with a little bit of warmth, but doesn't mean that you end up feeling like you're all trapped in, or that you feel like too hot or too furry, or there's too much around you. I think even if you're in a place where it's difficult to keep flowers going, or you have a thumb that's a little bit more like mine, which is more on the brown side, less on the green side, then even choosing things that are already finished, like what I call faux laurels, add a bit of bright color to the house. You can keep them. You don't have to water them too often. You can if you want to, but you don't have to water them too often. And it just adds a whole great feeling of brightness to the whole house. It's funny, I was saying yesterday that, for people, it's really easy. We just need to change up our house in the way that feels. If you're an animal, then you're meant to have another offspring, which seems really quite daunting. Every year in spring, you have to have another offspring. The upside is they only stay home for less than a year, whereas our version stays home for 30 years, and you have to feed them right on through.
Yes. Like your analogy there. And this year, too, I think people are really craving that spring feeling, the spring look, because we have been inside for how many months now?
For almost an entire year.
Yeah.
And so adding those, like really what makes this work well is whites, bright colors, things that like using those sort of pinks, using a linen that has a more cotton feel versus a heavier feel. Things that just add extra color to your house, like the flowers, start to brighten your mood. And this is another thing that I say every year around springtime, where you want to brighten up the house. One of the things that makes a huge difference is just spend a weekend and go and wash all of the windows on the outside.
Yep.
It's amazing how much dirt gets on them, and it starts to provide almost what looks like sunglasses to the whole house, brightens the whole thing up, and then add a bunch of things that have whites, brights, yellows,
and there we go.
Pinks.
We have run out of time, but I'm going to go home and put spring all over my house. Thank you, Glenn.
Fantastic.
Great to see you again.
You too. I'll see you soon.